talk about epic arsenal. These big beefy weapons, they pack a punch. Welcome back to Geek, your first point of call for all things origin stories and lore. Today we're diving into the incredible universe of Warhammer 40k, where might meets mystery, and heroism is often overshadowed by chaos. Have you ever wondered what it truly means to be a Space Marine? These legendary warriors, they're not just super soldiers, they're the ultimate defenders of humanity, bound by duty, honour, and sometimes a touch of madness. Join us as we unravel the lore of these iconic figures. We'll explore their origins, their chapter houses, and the dark paths that some of them tread, from the awe-inspiring power armour to the chilling reality of their inner struggles. This is a journey that you don't want to miss. So grab your bolter and let's dive deep into the lore of Space Marines. Picture this. You're just an average Joe, chilling on the human Imperial Empire, and here come the Space Marines. These massive, intimidating guys in their power armour. You hardly ever see them without it, and when they do talk, it's all sealed up in their suits, chatting away on their Vox units. To us regular people, it kind of sounds just like a bunch of radio clicks, and at first glance, you might think they're just silent statues standing around, but hold on to your hat. The moment they decide to unleash their firepower or a giant fist just comes smashing down, you'll realise you're in for a world of hurt. As tough and as invincible as Space Marines look, they're still very much human at the end of the day. They can mess up like the rest of us, and believe it or not, they've got their vulnerabilities. These guys, they weren't always the super soldiers we see now. They started out as regular humans, and they went through some serious intense stuff to become living weapons. Think genetic upgrades, cybernetic enhancements, and training that's so brutal, it's practically a rite of passage. Those who make it through come out looking like demigods. But don't let the tough exterior fool you, they've got their own battles to fight. Thanks to some mind-blowing science from the Emperor of Mankind, most of which has sadly been lost in the sands of time, these select few get to live way longer than your average person, and they fight like absolute champs. Decked out in this super high-tech armour and armed with the most powerful weapons around, Space Marines are the ultimate result of humanity's quest to take on the looming threats of chaos and those pesky xenos. They're basically the superheroes we need in this wild universe. Once upon a time, they were actually known as Thunder Warriors. Space Marines, they were kind of whipped up by the Emperor of Mankind to bring everyone together on Terra during the Wild Unification Wars, sort of at the tail end of the 29th and the 30th millennium. So picture this chaotic time where endless brawls were where all the feuding factions of Earth were finally put in their place by the Emperor and this unstoppable ironclad legions. There was a legendary showdown that sort of ended with everyone uniting under one awesome banner. And while these original genetic creations, they weren't as long-lived as the Space Marines we know today, they did have like sort of a wild streak, both mentally and physically, and they were definitely stronger than their Astartes ancestors. They played a huge role in shaping what we now call the Imperium of Man. However, because of their genetic quirks, they were seen as a bit of a liability after the war, so the Legio Custodes, following the Emperor's orders, they just quietly took them out behind the scenes. And to keep things tidy, history then got a little bit of a makeover, claiming they all just went down in the last epic battle of Terra. Bit of a plot twist we didn't see coming. Not mad about it though. After a lot of trial and error, the Emperor finally nailed down the perfect recipe for creating Astartes. After decades of hard work, this led to the birth of the mighty Primarchs and the formation of 20 Space Marine legions. The grand plan was sort of for these top-tier Astartes to lead their own chapter houses on some seriously awesome crusades, but then, cue the dramatic music, the Chaos Gods decided to just crash that party, and it took a wild turn. Not many make it through the wild ride of becoming a Space Marine, but with a galaxy this huge and plenty of potential aspirants to choose from, the odds they even themselves out. It's definitely not a walk in the park for those brave souls, but when you dangle the chance of becoming a demigod in front of someone, it's kind of no wonder they're willing to dive into that meat grinder. Talk about high stakes. Meat grinder, I tried. The Astartes application process, it's a bit of a mixed bag depending on the planet that you're from. But one thing's for sure, they only scoop up the cream of the crop. Some folks, they sort of apply at the chapter house, while others, they have to endure a super tough selection process that just weeds out all but the strongest contenders. Some are even kidnapped, and there are tales of them scouting potential recruits right from birth. Then you have planets with more of a tribal vibe, where the toughest warriors are handpicked from their tribes to get chosen, pulling off some impressive feats to prove that they've got what it takes. It's quite the adventure. Becoming a Space Marine, as I mentioned, it's a serious physical challenge. There's crazy augmentation procedures, but thanks to this long, very intense and super painful surgeries, that really put their bodies to the test. Those who do survive, it's worth it. They get to enjoy a whole bunch of benefits and abilities that make them feel like superhumans. These shiny new abilities, they come from something called gene seed. Think of it sort of as a mix of genetic material packed with special cells, unique organs, and viral machines that get implanted into a willing teenage human to transform them into an Astartes. So there are 19 different types of gene seed. Each one has its own special role. Each one has a weird name, so forgive me if my pronunciation is off. But we'll dive in regardless and check them out. So you've got the maintainer. It's a second heart, and it boosts the oxygen and the nutrient supply, helping injured Astartes stay alive until help arrives. Osmodular secretes growth hormones and fuses ribs into this protective plate. By Scopia, it enhances physical strength by promoting muscle growth. Hemostamen, it changes blood composition for better oxygen transport. Laraman's organ quickly forms clots and scar tissue around the wounds. Catalpsian node, it enables Astartes to function without sleep, but it can lead to psychosis. Priamnor allows digestion of otherwise harmful substances. Omophagia, it sort of lets Astartes recall memories from creatures they consume. Multilung, sort of what it says on the tin, a third lung that boosts oxygen intake and filters toxins. Oculobe improves vision in low light. Lyman's ear replaces the ear, preventing dizziness and amplifying sound filtering. Susan membrane, it enables prolonged hibernation for survival after severe injuries. Melanchrome regulates skin melanin in response to sunlight. Lytic kidney detoxifies the body in emergencies. Neuroglottis tests substance toxicity and aids in scent tracking. Mucranoid seals skin for protection during suspended animation. Butcher's gland produces a blinding acid for offence. Progenoid gland prevents DNA rejection and allows for gene seed harvesting. The black carapace connects directly to the cybernetic systems of power armor. Getting new gene seed is super tricky. Humanity has long lost the know-how to make more. Plus, those who get implanted with tainted gene cultures often end up dealing with some serious mutations and flaws. It's a tough gig. The Thousand Sons really struggled with wild mutations, and they eventually fixed it in a dramatic way by immolating their entire chapter. Their apothecary goes into full-on treasure hunter mode to harvest the precious gene seed. It's like a high-stakes game of tag, essentially. After becoming a Space Marine, there were originally just two ways your epic journey could end: either a glorious death on some distant world, or being entombed in a dreadnought and turned into a walking tank. But with the arrival of the 41st millennium, a shiny new option popped up, thanks to the genius Archmagus Dominus Belisarius Call. By gathering samples from 20 Primarch gene seeds, he figured out how to elevate regular Astartes into Primaris. Becoming a Primaris is a rare and super challenging feat, but those who make it are not highly respected. They're also nearly unstoppable in battle. With just a 0.001% chance of genetic quirks, they've basically dodged the issues that other chapter houses face. Primaris Marines, they come equipped with all the original gene seed upgrades, plus 3 extra awesome enhancements. Sinew coils, these strong coiled cables are placed in the muscles, boosting a Primaris' strength so much that they can crush a skull with one hand, bite through metal cables, and punch through hardened flak armor like it's paper. Magnificat, it's like a tiny lobe known as the amplifier. It's in the cortex and it boosts other gene seed abilities, resulting in bigger size and muscle mass for the Primaris. Then you've got the Belisarian furnace. This dormant organ, it kicks in during severe injury or stress, releasing a powerful mix that sort of cauterizes wounds and rapidly regrows bone tissue and muscle, helping them survive even in the toughest injuries. When it comes to the gear these towering titans use, they're loaded with all kinds of awesome and deadly weapons to take down the heretical and xeno hordes. For ranged attacks, they've got powerful artillery and orbital bombardments. In close combat, they unleash Prometheum spewing flamers, bolters, heavy stubbers, plasma guns. I mean, talk about serious arsenal. Even an unarmed Space Marine is kind of like a martial arts ninja, boasting lightning-fast reflexes and hard enough strength to snap the necks of most xenos with just one hand. No sweat. And if they have psychic powers or cybernetic upgrades, forget it. A Space Marine is a relentless force that won't back down until it's either taken out, fully restrained, or just blown to bits. You can't talk about Space Marines without giving a shout out to the amazing bolters. They're like a staple in the 40k universe, a fan favourite firearm and definitely one of the coolest weapons ever invented. For those who aren't familiar, bolters, I have an idea, just bear with me. They come in all sorts of variants, like the hefty dual-barreled bolter, the spear-mounted guardian used by the Adeptus Custodes, and even a smaller pistol version. Talk about epic arsenal. These big beefy weapons, they pack a punch with super satisfying chunk. They're fire massive. .75 caliber rounds are rocket-powered, explosive-tipped. Just one bolter round can blow someone in half or completely detonate them if it hits the right spot, and they're perfect for taking down those bigger beasties. There's one thing that makes Space Marines look super cool, intimidating, and sometimes maybe a bit silly. It's their power armor. This armor acts like a fortress, keeping those charging brutes safe from any threats on the battlefield. The armor can connect with all sorts of tech, and it's completely sealed to protect the wearer from extreme temperatures, harsh environments, radiation, toxins, and even the cold vacuum of space. Locked away in their tough suits, Space Marines are practically unstoppable. Big soldiers need some seriously hefty rides, and the Space Marines have some truly massive vehicles to match. Their garages are packed with armoured APCs, gravity-defying land speeders, giant motorcycles, and even larger-than-life tanks. I mean, talk about a cool collection of mechanised awesomeness. They also have their signature Thunderhawk dropships, portable jump packs, and massive system-spanning fleets composed of strike cruisers and attack vessels that are more heavily armed floating cathedrals than starships. So when Space Marines roll out for a fight, they definitely bring their biggest guns. So here's a fun fact about Space Marines. The term isn't just one size fits all. Astartes aren't just one big group fighting for the same cause. Instead, they're split into lots of unique chapter houses, each with their own flavour, often based on the Primarch who founded them, so no two chapters are alike. For instance, you've got the Imperial Fists, the Galaxy's red shirts, dive headfirst into every battle, and on the flip side you've got Night Lords, who are all about stealth, lurking in the shadows with their secretive goals. Then you have Ultramarines, who pretty much do their own thing as long as they're stopping chaos, and the White Scars, who are all about their own agenda. Chapter houses rarely meet or team up except during big crusades. Most of the time they're focused on their own missions and battles against whatever threats come their way or worlds they protect. Space Marines, they have a pretty quirky belief system. While some chapter houses have their own unique doctrines or beliefs based on their home worlds, almost all Marines have pledged their loyalty to the God Emperor who created them or the Primarch who leads them. Thanks to the strict training, they become the unstoppable defenders of humanity, protecting it from the dangers of deep space and even from itself. While Space Marines are tasked with protecting humanity, many of them, and even some entire chapters, they don't exactly have warm and fuzzy view of regular humans. They often see them as weak, fragile, viewing them as obstacles in their mission to wipe out the enemies of the Imperium. The twisted idea of acting for a so-called greater good leads them to commit some pretty questionable and sometimes downright awful acts in the name of keeping order. This can include things like wiping out entire populations or even destroying whole planets if there's even a hint of xeno or chaos lurking around. Even though they look like unbeatable, immortal superhumans, Space Marines can fall to the corruption just like anyone else. It usually takes a little bit more time and effort to push them over the edge, but when it happens, watch out. That's when an Astartes transforms into a Chaos Space Marine. These twisted creatures, they're like walking nightmares, psychotic, genocidal murderers decked out with all sorts of creepy gifts from their dark patrons. They're all about pursuing their own sinister goals or earning favours from their favourite chaos god, with many dreaming of shedding their humanity through apotheosis and becoming immortal demon princes. Chaos Space Marines, they come in all sorts of shapes, sizes, colourful armour, and depending on which chaos god or fallen Primarch they've once followed. There are even more subgroups and smaller factions that splinter off from there. It's an endless wave of chaos, and if they're ever united as one, they could seriously put the galaxy or even the whole universe at serious risk. So there you have it. We've journeyed through the fascinating and sometimes wild lore of Space Marines. They are an incredible, towering defenders of humanity, each with their own unique quirks and backstories, from their awe-inspiring power armour to their complex beliefs and the darker paths some may tread. It's clear that the lore surrounding these epic warriors is as deep as the galaxy itself. If you've enjoyed this lore breakdown, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more origin stories, deep dives, lore analysis, and so much more with Geek. And let us know in the comments which chapter is your favourite. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep your bolters ready, your faith strong, and remember, the Emperor protects.